I want you to close your eyes for just a second. I want you to imagine a version of basketball that completely breaks literally all the rules you grew up with.
Oh, it shatters them.
Right. I mean, picture a game where the absolute best shooter on the floor, like the guy who can pull up from 30 feet and hit absolutely nothing but net, never, ever has to turn around and sprint back on defense.
Never. Not once.
He just hits the shot, turns around, and literally walks to the bench. And then on the flip side, imagine the most terrifying rim protector in the entire league, right? A player who just swats shots into the 10th row.
Yeah, a total monster in the paint.
Exactly. Imagine that guy never having to worry about his jump shot or, his free throw percentage or his offensive spacing. Why? Because they literally never play on the offensive side of the ball.
It forces a total cognitive reset for anyone who has ever, even touched a basketball.
It really does.
Because the fundamental assumption of the sport, literally since James Naismith nailed up those peach baskets, is that you play both ends of the floor.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a two-way game.
Exactly. Your value is intrinsically tied to your ability to survive or, thrive in transition. So removing that requirement, it just unravels the entire fabric of how players are evaluated.
How strategies are formed, right?
Yeah, and just how the game physically looks to you, the viewer.
So our mission today for this deep dive is to dissect this radical, frankly, kind of mind-bending concept we've been reviewing. It's a proposal titled Building the Rules.
Fascinating document.
It is wild. The core premise basically divides the game of basketball into these distinct, hyper-specialized offensive and defensive units. Platoons.
5 guys for offense, 5 guys for defense.
Right, 5 guys who only try to score and 5 completely different guys who only try to stop the other team from scoring.
It sounds so simple when you say it out loud, but the ripple effects are huge.
Oh, totally. We're going to unpack how these proposed changes completely upend traditional concepts. We're talking from the basic geometry of the court to the very definition of what makes someone a superstar.
It's going to be a fun one.
When I first looked at this, my mind immediately jumped to American football.
Oh, sure, the platoon system.
Exactly. You have your offense,
Yeah.
you have your defense, and you have special teams.
Right.
So the quarterback throws his interception, the camera cuts away, and suddenly, boom, 11 new guys wearing the same jersey are on the field to play defense.
It's a very structured stoppage.
Right. But in basketball, the transition between offense and defense happens in like a split second. A guy misses a shot, the other team grabs the rebound, and you're immediately running.
You're off to the races.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So translating a really rigid platoon system onto a fluid, constantly moving sport like basketball, it seems like an administrative nightmare.
Well, yeah, because implementing platoons requires a complete overhaul of the rules governing possession flow. You simply cannot have fluid transition basketball if you also mandate distinct offensive and defensive units.
They fundamentally contradict each other.
Exactly. So the mechanism proposed in the text to handle this is it's both brilliant and completely chaotic.
Okay, break that down for me.
So substitutions, and by that I mean full 5-man platoon swaps, are allowed after every single score, after every turnover, and crucially, after every defensive rebound.
Wait, every single defensive rebound?
Yes. Each of those events acts as a hard reset. It triggers a completely new possession. The play basically dies.
Okay, a defensive rebound triggering a structural pause is where my brain just starts to glitch.
It's hard to visualize, I know.
Because in any level of basketball, from pickup games at the local YMCA to Game 7 of the NBA Finals, a defensive rebound is the ignition switch for the offense.
It's the start of the break.
Right. You secure the board, you immediately find your point guard, and you push the pace to catch the defense while they're retreating. But if grabbing a defensive rebound immediately blows the play dead to allow for substitutions.
You are essentially legislating the fast break out of existence.
It's dead. The fast break is completely dead.
Totally dead. You can no longer punish a team for taking a bad shot by, beating their heavy-footed center down the floor. The moment that defensive rebound is secured, the possession is over for the shooting team. The whistle blows or a buzzer sounds, and the coaching staff has to execute a wholesale 5-man swap.
Just massive chaos at the scorer's table.
Yeah, the 5 defenders who just battled for that rebound walk off the court, and the 5 offensive specialists walk on.
Putting myself in the shoes of a head coach,
Yeah.
the logistical challenge of that is just staggering to me. Think about it. A standard NBA game has roughly 100 possessions per team.
Give or take, yeah.
So we are talking about 200 distinct moments where 5 massive human beings have to sprint off the floor while 5 other massive human beings sprint on.
All within a few seconds.
Yeah, all while the referees just stand there holding the ball.
Yeah.
It sounds like a recipe for constant delay of game penalties. I mean, you'd need a dedicated substitutions coordinator on the coaching staff just to manage traffic.
Oh, absolutely. Managing that sideline traffic becomes the most critical skill for a coaching staff. Think about how the flow changes. Traditional basketball is essentially a continuous, cardio-heavy sprint.
Lots of miles on the legs.
Right. The physical toll comes from the constant transition sprinting from the offensive perimeter all the way back to paint defense over and over. It's an endurance test.
Yeah, it really is.
But this platoon system shifts the sport into a highly tactical, possession-by-possession chess match. The cardio element is drastically reduced.
Because they're only playing half the time?
Less than half, really, with the dead balls. Players are no longer pacing themselves for a 38-minute workload. They are executing maximum effort anaerobic bursts for maybe 15 to 24 seconds, and then they're sitting down.
Okay, but if the physical cardiovascular pace slows down like that, doesn't the game risk bogging down into a slow half-court grind?
That's a valid concern, yeah.
Because nobody wants to watch an endless series of static set-play isolations. We've seen what happens when basketball becomes a pure half-court slugfest, right?
Right, late 90s Eastern Conference.
Exactly. It can get incredibly stagnant. The beauty of the modern game is the flow, the early offense, the secondary breaks.
Yeah.
If we lose that, what replaces the energy?
Well, the physical running speed decreases, sure, but the mental and tactical pace would actually need to skyrocket.
How so?
Well, pace in this new environment isn't defined by how fast a point guard can dribble end to end. It is defined by rapid-fire deployment.
Okay, give me an example of that.
Imagine the coordination required the instant a live ball turnover happens. Your point guard throws a bad pass, the opposing lockdown defender tips it and recovers it. Whistle.
Right, dead ball immediately.
Exactly. Now, your offensive platoon has mere seconds to recognize the error, get off the floor, and allow your defensive unit to sprint to their assigned spots before the opposing offensive unit initiates their set.
Oh, wow. So it's like a line change in hockey, but even more frantic.
Yes. The kinetic energy shifts from a track meet into a synchronized, high-speed military deployment. The advantage goes to the unit that can process the tactical shift and execute their specific scheme with the most precision under extreme time pressure.
That makes the margin for error incredibly slim.
Razor thin.
Because in a standard game, if you turn the ball over, you can sometimes make up for it by, making a hustle play. You chase the guy down for a chase down block, LeBron style.
The ultimate redemption play.
Exactly. But here you turn the ball over and your job is just done. You jog to the bench and hope your defensive platoon can bail you out. It completely divorces the action of making a mistake from the action of fixing it.
Which is a brilliant point, and it brings us to the players themselves.
All right.
If you completely divorce offensive responsibility from defensive responsibility, the type of athlete you draft and develop changes overnight.
Oh, I bet.
The modern ideal of the versatile two-way player, it becomes completely obsolete.
Really? Because, the 3-and-D wing has been the holy grail of roster construction for the last decade.
Everyone wants one.
Every single general manager is desperately searching for 6'8" guys who can guard 3 positions and shoot 39% from the corner.
It's the most valuable archetype in the league right now.
Right. And we understand the economics of spacing. If a wing plays elite defense but can't shoot, opposing defenses just ignore them, they pack the paint, and it ruins the offense.
Yeah. They become a liability.
Eventually, the coach has to pull them because the offensive liability outweighs the defensive benefit. But you're saying that dynamic just vanishes.
Completely vanishes. Because traditional basketball ruthlessly punishes specialization. It demands a baseline competency across the board. If you can't shoot, you can't play.
Right.
But the platoon system, it embraces and rewards extreme singular traits. Scouts are no longer looking for well-rounded athletes.
They're looking for anomalies.
Exactly. They are hunting for absolute masters of one specific domain. The defensive center who has zero offensive coordination. The passing specialist who can thread a needle perfectly but couldn't defend a folding chair.
A folding chair?
Seriously. And the lockdown wing who is deployed as a pure disruptor.
Let's actually look at that lockdown wing for a second. Because in a platoon league, a player whose sole job is to erase the opponent's best perimeter scorer suddenly becomes a max contract asset.
Easily a max player.
You can have a player who is an absolute offensive zero, like someone whose shooting mechanics are fundamentally broken, just terrible.
We're talking air balls on wide open threes.
Yeah. But if they possess the lateral quickness, the wingspan, and the defensive IQ to basically face guard a superstar for 24 seconds at a time, they are invaluable.
Because they dictate the entire defensive strategy without ever needing to touch the basketball.
It's wild to think about.
They're deployed like a heat-seeking missile. Think about today's game. An elite defender still has to conserve roughly, 50% of their energy to run the floor and participate in the offense?
At least, yeah.
In a platoon system, that lockdown wing can expend 100% of their physical and mental energy just hounding the ball handler, navigating screens, applying full court pressure.
Because they know a break is coming.
Exactly. They know they will be safely resting on the bench the exact moment their team secures a rebound. The intensity of perimeter defense would escalate to levels we've never even seen because fatigue is completely removed from the equation.
It feels less like building a cohesive basketball team and more like assembling a heist crew.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
I just keep thinking of, like, an Ocean's 11 dynamic, you know?
Right.
You have your safecracker, your electronics expert, your acrobat. You don't need your explosives guy to also be the getaway driver.
You just need him to blow the vault.
Exactly. And it makes me think about the screen specialist role mentioned in the source material. In normal basketball, a guy who sets a screen needs to either roll to the rim with soft hands to catch a pass or, plop out to the perimeter to shoot.
They have to be a threat. But the mechanics of the screen and roll change entirely when the screener isn't a threat to score.
Right. You could literally draft a 6'10", 320-pound offensive tackle from a college football program.
Just a mountain of a man.
Yeah. His only reason for being on the hardwood is to set absolute brick wall screens to free up the shooters and to use his massive frame to secure offensive rebounds.
He doesn't need touch around the rim at all.
He doesn't even need to look at the basket. His entire offensive statistical output might be 0 points, but his screen assists and offensive boards would generate dozens of open looks for his teammates.
Drafting for mass, leverage, and angle comprehension over shooting touch is such a fascinating roster inefficiency to exploit.
It's basically a different sport for that guy.
It is. A 320-pound screen specialist completely alters the geometry of the half-court. Defenders cannot physically fight through screens set by someone of that size.
They just bounce off him.
They really would.
Yeah.
Which forces defenses into deep drop coverages or immediate switches, which the specialized offensive unit then violently attacks.
Okay, as much as I appreciate the tactical brilliance of a giant human bulldozer just setting screens out there.
It is tactically brilliant.
It is. But do we lose the artistry of the sport?
Ah, the aesthetic question.
Yeah, because the beauty of a basketball superstar is their ability to control the entire game, right? Scoring 30 points, grabbing 10 rebounds, dishing out 8 assists, and making the crucial steal in the fourth quarter.
The total package.
Right. If players are just hyper-specialized cogs in a machine, does the aesthetic flow of a singular athlete dominating all facets of the sport just disappear?
It definitely shifts. It shifts the aesthetic from improvisational brilliance to industrial precision.
Industrial precision. I like that phrasing.
Think about it. Modern workforce economics followed the exact same trajectory. The generalist who handled multiple facets of a business was eventually replaced by highly tuned specialists managing microprocesses.
The assembly line.
Exactly. The beauty in this proposed basketball league comes from flawless, synchronized team execution.
So it's less about the individual heroics.
Way less. You are watching a perfectly designed offensive set executed by 5 players who have spent 10,000 hours mastering their specific role within that one set. The screen specialist sets the unmovable screen. The passing specialist reads the defense's rotation and delivers the ball with millimeter precision. And the pure shooter releases it flawlessly. It's an orchestra rather than a solo performance.
Okay, but that orchestration completely breaks our current metrics for evaluating greatness.
Oh, absolutely.
If we're building these heist crew rosters, how do we even measure the value of a player who literally never shoots?
It's the ultimate analytics challenge.
Because the current ecosystem is entirely dominated by points per game. The MVP debate always centers around usage rate, true shooting percentage, and scoring volume.
The guys who put the ball in the hole.
Yeah, the guys who score get the shoe deals and the max contracts. If you have a defensive center or a screen specialist who averages 0 points, there is a massive cognitive hurdle in recognizing them as an elite superstar.
It's true. The existential question for basketball analysts in this reality is whether a player could average 0 points, 18 rebounds, and 5 blocks, and legitimately make the All-NBA team.
Could they?
Based on the structural math of the platoon system, the answer is an unequivocal yes.
Really? An unequivocal yes.
Not only are they an All-NBA player, they might be the most valuable player in the entire league.
Okay, I can see the analytics community rallying behind a 0-point MVP, but fan culture operates on emotion.
Sure.
Scoring is the emotional climax of a possession. Rebounding and rim protection, while deeply respected, are often viewed by the casual fan as, like, utilitarian chores.
The dirty work.
Right. It reminds me of the debate around offensive linemen in the NFL. A left tackle can have a historically dominant season, keeping the quarterback perfectly clean, winning 99% of his pass blocking snaps.
And he is incredibly valuable.
Unbelievably valuable. But he is never, ever going to win NFL MVP over the quarterback who threw for 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. We inherently value the person who crosses the goal line.
The valuation of the left tackle versus the quarterback is a really apt comparison. But let's look at the mathematical gravity of 18 rebounds and 5 blocks in a platoon setting.
Okay, let's run the numbers.
In traditional basketball, a blocked shot often just goes out of bounds, right?
Yeah.
Giving the ball right back to the offense.
Yeah, it's just a reset.
It's a disruption, not a change of possession. But in a league where a defensive rebound triggers a dead ball and a platoon swap, securing that board is the singular objective of the defensive unit.
Because it's the only way they get to leave the floor.
It is the only way to get off the floor.
So every defensive rebound is a hard stop to the opponent's scoring probability.
Exactly. Let's assume a league average of roughly 1.15 points per possession.
Okay.
If a defensive center blocks 5 shots and secures 13 defensive rebounds, they have unilaterally ended 18 opponent possessions.
Wow.
They have taken roughly 20 potential points directly off the opposing scoreboard, just by themselves.
It's a massive swing.
Now add 5 offensive rebounds to that stat line. In a platoon system, an offensive board allows your highly specialized scoring unit a second opportunity against a fatigued defensive unit without having to sub out.
Oh, because the dead ball only happens on a defensive rebound.
Precisely. So by grabbing 5 offensive boards, you are creating 5 extra high-value possessions.
So that one player is controlling the outcome of 23 distinct possessions through sheer spatial dominance.
Yes. And mathematically, swinging the game by 23 possessions creates a point differential equivalent to, if not greater than, a player who scores 30 points on high-volume shooting.
That is wild to think about.
The impact on win probability is astronomical. The challenge, as you pointed out, though, is marketing that impact.
Right. How do you sell a 0-point superstar to a kid buying a jersey?
The league would have to undertake a massive cultural rewiring of the fan base. Commentators and analysts would need to build an entirely new vocabulary for dominance.
We'd have to stop fetishizing the crossover and the step-back three.
Exactly.
Broadcasts would have to visually highlight spatial control. Like, I can imagine the color commentators using those telestrators to show how a defensive center's near positioning deterred 2 baseline drives, forcing a contested perimeter shot late in the shot clock.
They'd be circling the empty space on the floor.
Yeah. Look at the gravity he commands. And instead of celebrating a 40-point performance, the lead story on sports networks would be a defensive unit holding an opponent to 0.7 points per possession.
It requires a much deeper level of basketball literacy from the average viewer, for sure.
You are basically selling the tactical chess match rather than the visceral thrill of a slam dunk.
Exactly right. But introducing highly specialized platoons creates physical vulnerabilities on the court that require their own set of rules.
What do you mean?
Well, if 5 offensive players never have to play defense, there is a glaring immediate loophole regarding where those players physically stand when the ball changes hands.
Ah, the cherry-picking problem.
The ultimate cherry-picking problem.
Because if my defensive platoon just secured a rebound and the referee is about to blow the whistle to sub my offensive guys in, what literally stops me from telling my 5 offensive players to just bypass half court entirely?
Absolutely nothing, historically speaking.
They could just sprint down to the opponent's basket, set up camp directly under the rim, and wait for my inbounder to launch a 90-foot pass the exact second the ball is live.
Yep.
You would turn every single possession into a chaotic Hail Mary. It wouldn't even be basketball anymore.
The architecture of the game would completely collapse into a long driving contest without positional regulations.
So how does the proposal fix that?
By borrowing a concept from soccer, the proposal implements an offside restriction.
An offside rule in basketball, okay.
The rule explicitly states that a player cannot camp inside the paint before the ball crosses half court.
Inside the paint.
Yes. The stated purpose is to preserve the structural integrity of the half-court battle and force the offensive unit to advance the ball organically.
So by banning players from pre-positioning in the paint, you force the point guard to actually navigate the backcourt and initiate the offense like a normal game.
That's the intention, yes.
Let's look at how this half-court restriction alters current defensive schemes. Because in standard basketball, transition defense is all about building a wall.
Right, retreating.
You miss a shot, you immediately sprint back, identify the ball handler, and try to stop the early advance. You are always retreating.
But under platoon rules, the defensive unit entering the game is completely fresh.
Oh, right. They're coming off the bench.
They don't have to retreat from a missed shot. They are stepping onto the floor near midcourt, setting up a prepared, highly organized front.
A literal defensive line.
Exactly. The offside rule ensures that the offense must march the ball up into the teeth of a set defense. The battle line is clearly drawn at half court, preventing the offense from bypassing pressure via cheap lobs to a giant center waiting in the restricted area.
I totally understand the intent of the rule. But reading the specific phrasing from the source inside the paint before the ball crosses half court reveals what looks like a massive tactical vulnerability.
Oh, tell me.
The paint is a very specific rectangular area on the floor.
It is.
The rule says absolutely nothing about the perimeter. It says nothing about the corners.
Yes. A literal interpretation of the text leaves the vast majority of the opponent's half of the court completely unregulated.
Right, so if I have a passing specialist taking the ball out of bounds, and the rule only bans my players from being in the paint, I am absolutely instructing my two most lethal three-point shooters to go stand in the deep offensive corners before the ball is even inbounded.
Just waiting there.
Yeah. They can legally loiter 80 feet away from the ball. And if the opposing defensive coach decides to apply a traditional full-court press to trap my point guard in the backcourt.
Which they would want to do with fresh legs.
Exactly. If they try that, my point guard just throws a massive overhead pass to a wide-open shooter in the corner.
You have just outlined the exact spatial arms race this rule would create.
It would be madness.
Think about it. The traditional full-court press relies entirely on shrinking the floor and outnumbering the ball handler.
You trap them in the corners of the backcourt.
Yes. You use the sidelines and the half-court line as extra defenders. But if the offense legally stretches their personnel to the absolute geometric extremes of the hardwood putting two shooters in the opposite corners while the ball is under their own basket, the floor becomes unshrinkable.
Unshrinkable.
Yeah.
Defensive coordinators would have nightmares trying to solve that geometry.
They really would.
Because you can't just let two 40% three-point shooters stand alone in the corners. You have to guard them.
You have no choice.
Which means you have to send 2 of your 5 defensive specialists 80 feet away from the ball just to face guard those loitering shooters.
It creates a completely bizarre, fractured landscape. You commit 2 defenders to the deep corners, leaving you with only 3 defenders to pressure the ball handler and navigate the backcourt.
Right.
And the offense counters by keeping their point guard and 2 massive screen setters in the backcourt. You are essentially watching a 3-on-3 basketball game happen in the backcourt, while 2 isolated one-on-one matchups stand completely still on the other side of the gym, just staring at each other.
A 3-on-3 full-court press.
Exactly.
The amount of open space in the middle of the floor would be absurd. If those 3 offensive players break the press and cross half court, they suddenly have a massive numerical advantage in the middle of the floor because 2 defenders are glued to the corners.
They're completely stretched out.
Every single inch of the 94-foot court becomes a highly contested, specialized zone.
The offside rule prevents the easy layup, but inadvertently triggers a perimeter Cold War. Coaches would have to design complex, hybrid pressing schemes.
Like what would that even look like?
Well, perhaps a zone press that tries to bait that 80-foot pass. You could employ a free safety who plays center field, ready to intercept the long ball to the corners.
Oh, like an NFL safety reading the quarterback's eyes.
Precisely. The tactical permutations are endless because the spatial constraints of traditional basketball have been completely obliterated by this one rule change.
We have journeyed so deep into the weeds on this, completely reconstructing the sport from the ground up based on a single structural change.
It's amazing how one change cascades through the whole system.
It really is. We started with the simple premise of platoons, but saw how that mandates a complete rewrite of possession flow-turning defensive rebounds into dead ball mass substitution triggers.
Which changes the pace entirely.
Right. That structural pause eliminates transition basketball, shifting the kinetic energy into rapid-fire tactical deployment.
Which subsequently rewrites the entire philosophy of roster construction. The era of the versatile two-way wing gives way to the era of the hyper-specialist.
We explored the industrial beauty of the 320-pound screen specialist.
And the lockdown wing.
Yeah, leading to the analytical reality of the 0.18 rebound All-NBA superstar. The math definitively proves their value, even if the fan culture would, struggle to embrace a hero who literally never shoots.
They'd come around eventually. Math always wins.
True. And finally, we looked at how regulating this new reality requires borrowing offside mechanics from soccer, which inadvertently creates a stretched-out 3-on-3 backcourt pressing environment. It is a brilliant, totally alien version of the game we love.
It is alien. But before we conclude, consider one final staggering implication of this platoon system.
Lay it on me.
We've talked about tactics, spacing, and analytics. Let's talk about biology.
Biology, yep.
Traditional basketball places an immense physical toll on the human body. Running up and down a hardwood floor, playing both offense and defense for 82 games a year, destroys cartilage, ligaments, and tendons.
It's brutal.
The wear and tear is the primary reason an athlete's prime is traditionally considered to be their late 20s.
Yeah, you hit 32 or 33, you lose half a step of speed, and you become a total liability in transition defense.
Exactly. But under this proposed system, you are reducing a player's physical mileage by more than half?
Because they only play one side of the ball.
Yes, and they have guaranteed structured rest periods during every single game while the other platoon is operating. Think about it. A passing specialist doesn't need elite top-end speed. They need processing power and vision.
Right, they just need to see the angles.
And a screen specialist just needs to maintain mass.
So they aren't blowing out their knees on fast breaks. The longevity implications of that are incredible.
They're unprecedented.
We already see guys like LeBron James extending their prime through sheer force of will and, millions of dollars in bodily maintenance. If you remove the cardiovascular burden of transition defense, how long could these specialists actually play?
You could easily see a league where the peak age of a tactical point guard or a stationary shooting specialist isn't 28, but 38.
38.
Or even older. We could witness a future where 45-year-old grandmasters of the hardwood are still dissecting defenses, relying entirely on decades of accrued basketball IQ rather than explosive athleticism.
That is just wild.
The platoon system wouldn't just change how the game is played, it would fundamentally alter the human lifespan within professional sports.
A 45-year-old point guard throwing darts out of a 3-on-3 backcourt, while a 350-pound offensive tackle sets screens for him. It's a completely wild, fascinating thought experiment.
It really makes you look at the current game differently.
It does. Thank you for diving into the mechanics of this with us. It forces us to examine why the rules are what they are and what happens when you pull just a single thread. As always, keep questioning the underlying structure of the games you love. Until next time.